What's up, my box truck bosses? I'm the business doctor, and welcome to Box Truck Bank, where we discuss all things box truck. And today, I'm kind of going to be sharing with you how I started my box truck business, the steps I took, some of the hurdles I had to figure out, but more so to kind of give you an overview of what it takes to start your own box truck business. Now, initially, I never thought about getting into trucking. I always assumed you had to have a lot of money, a lot of resources, staff, financial backing. But I was approached by my cousin who had been researching businesses, and he said, you can get into, trucking through a box truck relatively cheap. And I always thought, well, even if I had the money, I still need a CDL. But I was able to start my box truck business of around $10,000 and with no CDL and without being the driver. So let's go ahead and jump into it. So the first thing I had to do was legally set up my business. Now I already had a business operating. So what I did is I just filed another trade name for my transportation company to go under my parent company. Now, depending on what assets you have, this may or may not be a good idea, depending on what you're trying to do, what your long-term goals are. So I always advise people to always consult a tax attorney, a CPA, or accountant. They can kind of help you see what's the best way for you to structure. But since I already had my business set up, I just paid $25 to the Secretary of State and added my new company name to my parent company. Now, if you're starting from scratch, you're going to either have to incorporate your business, set up a corporation, or an LLC. And it varies from state to state. Some states are $100, other states are up to $300. But that legally gets you set up. Once you set up or incorporate your business, from there you'll be able to set up business accounts. And then you can also, next you should apply for your EIN. And the EIN is your employer identification number. And in essence, it's basically the social security number for your business. It links everything your business does. But also that EIN number, or you may heard it referred to as a tax ID number, is also tied to you. So that's how the government tracks, what you're doing. That's what you'll use your EIN to file your yearly tax returns. So after I had filed my trade number, I said, okay, now it's time to find me a truck. Now, there are a few different ways you can go about purchasing a truck. You can go through auctions. You can purchase directly from a dealer, or you can do a personal buy, from someone you see on the street, someone that's selling it on the side of the road. There's a bunch of different options. So I decided to go the auction route. I bought the truck as is, which I don't recommend unless you just got some money to throw away or you have money to put into it. Because if you buy it as is, you don't know what potential issues you could come up with. So I end up going through an auction, but the seller was actually Frito-Lay. And this is where it's important to know who your seller is. It was Frito-Lay in California. So California is a little bit different as far as requirements and regulations that they have for their trucks. And when a truck gets so old, sometimes these bigger companies, instead of bringing it up to date for whatever California requires with an emission requirements, they'll just auction them off or get rid of them and just purchase a new truck. So I purchased my truck through the auction. We could kind of do a review online, but you really can't see a lot. You see the inside of the engine. You can look at the trailer, the tires, but it's not the same as being in person. So with the auction, before I was going to go and bid on it, I went ahead and started getting quotes. For quotes, you're going to need insurance quotes. You're going to need the VIN number and the mileage. And this is what your insurance agent, most of them will need in order to get you a quote. So I went ahead and I didn't sign up for a policy yet, but I went ahead and got quotes. So if I bought it, I would be ready to go. So I ended up auctioning and I purchased the truck with all the fees they apply. I got out the door for $6,200. $6,200. And when I got to California, what I went ahead and did is as soon as I got in the truck, I told my agent I'm going to be there tomorrow. So when I call you, that's when I want you to activate the policy. Now, depending on what company you go with, some companies may require you to give them 24 hours before it's active. This particular insurance company, you could call them same day and it would go active. So I called her right when I got in the truck before I left the lot, before I started up, and I said, okay, I want you to go ahead and activate it. So I was good to go once I picked it up. So I took it to a mechanic. And through these auctions, a lot you may, especially if it's out of state, you may not be able to get a mechanic to look at it. Some auctions allow you to, some don't. They all kind of vary. So I went ahead and took it in to a mechanic, and it had needed a new water pump. So it ended up being $1,500 to get a new water pump. So I think it took a day or two to get the water pump replaced, and after that we were good to go. So I drove it back to my home state, and we were good to go from there. That's when I went ahead and got it registered. Now this is important. When I got my tag and registration, in California, the Frito-Lay left the tag on there. It was still tagged. Depending on where you're at, some auctions may not keep the tags on there. In that instance, because I bought different trucks, but in that instance, you'll have to get the tag before you go, which could be an additional cost. But on this particular purchase, they kept the tags on there. It was still good to go, so I didn't have to travel back. I didn't have to purchase it beforehand. And that's another thing to remember. You're required to have a DOT inspection on your truck annually. So you want to check to see if their inspection is up to date or not. If not, you may need to get a DOT inspection. And basically, just go and make sure that your truck is good to be on the road. So once you get back, now you need to ready to get it on the road. You're already paying insurance, and this time is crucial. This is when you go ahead and file for your DOT and MC number, which is, I'm sorry, I skipped it. The tag and registration was $500. The repairs was $1,500, and the truck was $6,200. So the DOT and MC number, this is important on the timing of when you do this, because you can save some money depending on how you work it. But the DOT and MC number was $300. You can file this before you get your truck, but in order for it to go active, you need to have insurance on file. And to have insurance on file, you're going to need that. Most places are going to require you to have a truck. So as soon as you ready to go, get your DOT and MC filed, and then it's about a 21-day waiting period before it goes active. I have to check again, but there's some time before that where you're able to do in-state routes. But to be able to cross state lines is a 21-day waiting period. And this is where you're going to have your insurance file, the BMC 91. What this is this is a document that your insurance company sends to the Department of Transportation and lets them know that you have the minimum requirements, $750,000 of liability insurance covered, so that you can be active. Once they receive that, then they can start processing it for your DOT and MC to be active. You'll also need to file your BOC3. This was $30. You can Google BO3C companies, and there are a lot of different companies that do it for relatively cheap. The BOC3 is insurance filing that shows that you have a registered process agent in every state. So if there's a wreck, if you're in an accident, there's a process or contact agent in each state, and they provide you with all that with the agent. You just pay them $30 and they'll file it. You'll also need to file your UCR, which is the Unified Carrier Registration. This is an annual registration that you have to file every year, and the price is based on how many vehicles you have in your fleet. So for me, I only had one, and I think it's the first tier is 0 to 2 is the same price, and then it goes up from there. So my UCR was $59. Now this is important. You file it annually, but if you start in the middle of the year, if you start March 1st, the day that you're on the road, you have to have that filed. Otherwise, when you're going through inspections, or if you're going through a weigh station and they pull you and verify, you could be fined for that. So the UCR has to be filed before you start booking loads. You'll also need to look into getting a ELD or electronic logging device. Depending on your model, this can be, if you have a 2000 or newer vehicle, you're required to have electronic logging device, which there are a few different companies you can work with. But if you have older than a 2000, you can just do paper logs, which can be purchased at any truck stop that you want to. Most truck stops have it. So ELD. Then from there, you're ready to go. Now you need to look at hiring a driver, or if you're going to drive, you still have to do paperwork on yourself. So for me, I said I can drive because these are non-CDL. And when you think about this, non-CDL trucks are trucks that have a gross vehicle weight rating, or GVWR, of 26,000 pounds or less. So if it's 26,000 pounds or less, you don't need a CDL. Anyone with a license can drive. But anyone with a license shouldn't drive. Don't just let anyone in your truck just because they have a license. You want to get someone that's experienced, knows about backing up, dealing with the shippers, going through weigh stations, DOT inspections. This stuff will save you a lot of time, especially if they're familiar with how box trucks operate mechanically. But me, I said, I don't have time. I have other stuff to do. I'm not going to be a driver. So I put a post on Indeed. I think I got about 400 applications. Maybe had 20 or 30 applicants that I would consider, and then maybe 5 to 10 that I would actually want to hire. So you get a lot of applications, but sifting through them. And I'll be posting another video on how you go about hiring and what things to look for in your drivers. So once you post the driver, do an interview. I would normally do a Zoom interview and then say yes or no. If I say yes, then they come to an in-person interview face-to-face. And from there, if it goes well, then I go ahead and hire them. But every driver you have is going to need a driver qualification file. What this is, this is a file that's required for you to have, and it looks at a bunch of different elements. So the history, the motor vehicle report. You have to give them a driving test and sign off on it. But what I did was I just paid a company. I think they charged me $125, and I just give my driver the number. The driver calls the company, they put it all together and email me the file to print off. But with the driver qualification file, what you can do is you can actually do it on your own. There are templates online. You can buy the templates. There may be some free out there, but I know you can buy the templates for maybe $15, $20 and fill out the information yourself versus hiring a company. But what you will have to pay for on every driver is the MVR, or the motor vehicle report, and basically see if they have any accidents. Now it's up to you whether you want to hire them depending on how many accidents they have. But once you get that MVR, give it to your insurance so they can give you a quote on how much it's going to be to add them before you hire them, because you don't want to hire a driver and then it's going to make your insurance premium go up $10,000 or however much it goes up. So check into that, and that's actually what I started doing. I paid a company at first, but I said, well, no, I can do this. It takes a little time, but I can just pay anywhere from probably, every state is different, but probably $30 to $50 for the motor vehicle report, and I can fill out the rest of the things in the template. So you add them to your insurance, and then from there you're ready to go. Now there are some other things you want to have in the truck, which I'll be making another video about that, about having a toolbox, having an extra belt in there, having coolant, having power steering fluid, just things that if they need them or break down, a mechanic can come fix it right then, or your driver can put the fluid in there and get on down the road until they can get repaired. So you have to incorporate your business. If you already have one, you can file a trade name. That's $25. You get your EIN number. That's free. You get your truck. Mine was $6,200. Insurance for my first month was $1,100. And depending on what insurance you go through, some require a down payment, some don't. It depends on a lot of different elements. But the only thing I had to do was pay for my first month, which was $1,100. I had to do $1,500 in repairs to replace the water pump. The tag and registration was $500. DOT and MC was 300. BLC3 was 30. My UCR was 59. And then I paid 125 for the driver qualification file, but you could really do it for $30 to $50 and just do it yourself. I'm going to add them to my insurance, and that brought my grand total to $9,839, and that's how I started a box truck business for under $10,000. I hope this information has been helpful for those who are thinking about going into the box truck business, whether you're wanting to be a driver or whether you want to hire a driver. Before I end, don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe, and hit the bell so that you can receive notifications as I post more videos about different aspects of the box truck business. I'll be adding more videos, so I hope you all enjoyed the content and it was useful. And until next time, my box truck bosses, is the business doctor, and I'm out.